welcome in to another episode of The Racing Report. My name is Rob Peeters, and I'm so glad you've decided to join us here for this wonderful little half hour where we're going to talk all things motorsports because we've got a big show for you in store today. We had a ton of races this past week, and it's the greatest day in motorsports. Yeah, it started the day with the Monaco Grand Prix. You moved on to the Indianapolis 500, and then you finished it with the Coca-Cola 600, and we're going to talk about all of that coming up here later on in the show. And all of those series are in action again this weekend, so we'll get you ready for all of those races. But first, we're going to go ahead and get into the news. But before we do that, be sure, if you like this show, to follow me on social media. You can do so by looking up at rpeeters33. That's RPEETERS 33, and then make sure you've got the WTHR Plus app downloaded on your smart TV so that you can watch new episodes of the Racing Report as soon as they are posted. All right, let's go ahead and get right on into that Formula One news today, because the Prime Minister of Thailand was in Monaco this weekend to visit Williams driver Alex Albon as talks between the country and the FIA hosting a future Grand Prix continue to heat up. So we could see some movement on the Thai Grand Prix coming up here in the next couple of months, maybe, especially if that impressed and went well. We could see more heat moving in that direction. So we'll keep tabs on that. Meanwhile, Victor Martins will make his Free Practice 1 debut coming up this weekend in Barcelona with Williams. Martins currently sits 8th in the Formula 2 points standings following Monaco, and he's going to race in Albon's seat at Williams. So Alex Albon will not be competing in Free Practice 1, but he'll get back in the car for Free Practice 2. Meanwhile, more Formula One news to give you all today. Audi Formula One leader Mattia Binotto said he doesn't believe that Audi's 2026 engine will be the best on the grid, as the new regulations could, quote, kickstart a period of dominance for another team. Now, this is not unprecedented. This is something that's happened in Formula One before multiple times. Usually we see it with new regulations. It was very obvious in 2014 when you knew that the Mercedes engine was just faster than everybody else. The Mercedes car was faster than everybody else. And really, no matter how fast your car was, unless you had a Mercedes engine in it, it was very unlikely that you were going to get a podium at all. So that's something to keep in mind as we look forward to 2026 with these new engine regulations, with these new car regulations, to keep in mind that maybe the kind of parity that we're getting right now in Formula One isn't exactly built to last. But anything can happen, and we'll have to just wait around and see. We still got the full 2025 season to run before we get into those new regulations. Now, let's talk about something else that was interesting over the weekend. Mick Schumacher was spotted at the Indianapolis 500 over the weekend, and the hot rumor is that he might have been there with TWG Motorsports CEO Dan Taurus, who, as you know, oversees Andretti Global and the Cadillac F1 program. So he has been rumored to be in talks with Cadillac F1 about a return to Formula One. Now, the question then becomes, Cadillac F1's talking to a lot of different people. Is Mick Schumacher one of the finalists of the people that they're talking to? I don't know. He is racing in the World Endurance Championship this year. He has made it public to know that he would like to return to Formula One in some capacity that's not a reserve driver. And what does that mean? Well, probably as a primary driver. So we could see Mick Schumacher back in a F1 car, but it might be a little bit too soon to tell. So we'll keep tabs on that going forward. Finally, in the F1 world, ESPN says the Monaco Grand Prix on ABC averaged about 2.3 million viewers, up from last year's 2 million viewers. So some good news there for fans of Formula One, especially if you enjoy watching on ABC. Now let's kick it over to IndyCar, because we did have the Indianapolis 500 this past week, and we've got some fallout from it, because the second place finisher, the 6th place finisher, and the 12th place finisher have been disqualified. That's right. Marcus Ericsson, who finished 2nd, Kyle Kirkwood, who finished 6th, and Callum Ilott, who finished 12th, have all been relegated to the 31st, 32nd, and 33rd finishing positions. Now, this is due to they failed post-race a technical inspection, and so they will give up their prize money. Obviously, Marcus Ericsson, who had a shot to win, it's probably for the best that he didn't win now, because he would have had the race win stripped from him probably before he even really let it sink in that he was a winner again. very disappointing, very frustrating, I think, for the Andretti Global guys, as well as Prema, who now they had a car on the pole and they had a car finish 12th. Now they have a car that didn't finish and a car that was disqualified. Just couldn't go any more wrong for them. So definitely a rough thing to deal with there. But that is what has happened post Indianapolis 500. And there's a lot of fallout from that. But I think it's because IndyCar is really serious about cracking down on the technical inspection, especially given the Penske attenuator scandal that rocked the whole series just the week of the Indianapolis 500. I think that Doug Bowles and the IndyCar technical inspectors are just kind of cracking down now, and you might see more of that going forward as we continue to run the IndyCar season. Now, let's talk about something else that was a big thing. Now, we know Jacob Abel failed to qualify. Rinus VeeKay was one of the slowest cars in the field. Dale Coyne seems to be trying to fix that because he has released race engineers Ed Nathman and John Dick and replaced them with Michael Cannon and Mike Culliver. So if you know Michael Cannon, he was at AJ Foyt Racing the last couple of years, really was a big part of them gaining so much speed on the super speedways. He then went to Prema. Didn't really work out with them. Him and Prema went separate ways, but now he's back in an IndyCar paddock. He's going to be the race engineer for Rinus VeeKay. So I would be surprised if VeeKay doesn't start to see more pace on ovals and even maybe on the road courses. But that is a good pickup there for Dale Coyne to go out and get somebody like Michael Cannon to really help turn that program around, because that was not the best performance for Dale Coyne. Obviously, having one car failing to qualify, another car not finish the race. After qualifying so poorly, I think they're looking to get some better results coming up throughout the rest of the season and hopefully build some momentum so that maybe they won't be one of the cars sent home again when the 2026 Indianapolis 500 rolls around. Now, finally, let's talk about rating. Let's talk some more ratings. Fox Sports says that its first ever Indianapolis 500 that it carried received over 7 million viewers, an increase of about 40% compared to NBC's coverage from last year that saw about 5 million viewers. Now, Indianapolis and Louisville were the top two markets, according to Fox Sports. So that is some good news there, but also it's not exactly that surprising. Those two have been typically the top markets for IndyCar races in general. I'm not exactly surprised to see that. Now, what I will say, though, is I don't think that this is indicative of them ending the blackout. I think that obviously we've seen ratings increase with the blackout being lifted for the local Indianapolis market, but I haven't seen anything right now that tells me, yeah, they're probably going to lift the blackout. Yeah, these numbers are great, but it's not like we haven't seen good numbers with a blackout. I think the addition of the Indianapolis market inflates those numbers just a bit, and I know that IMS IndyCar has typically counted the ratings. I should say not IndyCar IMS, but the broadcasters, so NBC, ABC, in the past have counted the ratings for the tape-delayed broadcast in Indianapolis as part of that overall ratings score. So I think what you're really going to see here is probably more pressure on IMS to try and sell out the 500 so that they do lift the blackout, which will then in turn help Fox. But we will still see. I am not confident that we will see an end to the blackout anytime soon. But I've been wrong on the show before, and I'll be happy if I'm wrong again. But that's what my gut is telling me right now, and I really don't have any sources that tell me any different. So, sorry to everybody who wanted some positive news there, but hey, positive ratings are good. Now let's see if the series can carry that over on into Detroit. All right, final piece of news here is going to be talking about supercars. It is official. There will be 2 races in New Zealand next year, as Supercars has announced that Ruapunha will join Topau on the schedule next year. Topau has been locked in for another 3 years, and Ruapunha will undergo a multi-million-dollar upgrade before hosting a Supercars event for the first time next year. So some good news for some Kiwi fans down under, getting 2 Supercars races. After Pukekohe is actually, they're starting to really tear down that racetrack now, and that's kind of disappointing. That's a track that was out in Auckland, near Auckland, I should say, but Ruapunha is closer to Christchurch, so maybe some positive moves there, but that'll all be TBD as we get going. Final piece of supercars news here, real quick, is that Tickford Racing could be up for sale with Prime Financial Group, which is the company that was hired to facilitate fresh investments into the team, saying it has lined up 2 potential new owners who could take over the team or take over ownership shares in the team. However, current Tickford CEO Simon Brookhouse says that no deals have been finalized. So, some interesting news there. It's looking like they'll probably keep Cam Waters and Thomas Randall on the squad for next year. I wouldn't expect that to change, but definitely might see some ownership changes there in Tickford. All right, we're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, we're going to talk about all the NASCAR news that you need to know from this past weekend. So don't go anywhere. You are watching The Racing Report. And we're back on The Racing Report. My name is Rob Peeters. Thank you so much for tuning in again and sticking with us through that commercial break. Let's talk NASCAR news because there's a decent amount to get to. First and foremost, the National Motorsports Appeals Panel has overturned 2 of the 3 penalties levied to RFK Racing and the number 17 team after the Kansas race. The team was originally given a $75,000 fine and a loss of 60 owner points and 60 driver's points, as well as 5 playoff points. Now, following the appeal, the 5 playoff points deduction has been upheld, but the team will now only lose 30 driver and owner points as opposed to 60. Now, meanwhile, Chris Buescher's crew chief, Scott Graves, had already served his 2-race suspension, so that's kind of a moot point, but he'll be back on the pit box coming up this weekend in Nashville. So, some relatively good news if you're an RFK Racing fan, but again, it seems a little bit too little too late. They've already served most of those penalties, but hey, you win as part of your appeal, you got to take that as a win, I think. So now let's talk about some really cool news. This is really great news that I think you're going to enjoy. I know I like hearing it. In a recent episode of Hauler Talk, now that is NASCAR's, that is the NASCAR, kind of the engineering and the VP of racing side. They do a little podcast every week called Hauler Talk. And on that podcast, it was discussed that said NASCAR is finally looking into increasing horsepower to potentially 750 HP. Now, nothing has been confirmed or announced. It just says that, hey, since teams and drivers are really asking for this, NASCAR is finally starting to get the wheels. I don't know why it's taken this long to finally get them to start having that conversation and looking into this, but this could be something that happens on short track races coming up here in the future. I don't know when. I don't know when that would happen. Would it be later this year? Would it be next year? I don't know. That's all still TBD. But at the very least, we can confirm that NASCAR is looking into it and is actively thinking about an increase in horsepower, which I think will definitely help the racing, especially on road and street courses like Watkins Glen, Roval, Sonoma, the Chicago Street Race, as well as short tracks. I think that's key for NASCAR to really keeping the racing quality up there to be as good as it can be. So that's good news. Hopefully that comes to fruition. We'll see. Now, let's talk about some more supercars / NASCAR news. I know we just talked about some supercar news, but we've got more of it to talk about because supercars driver, defending supercars champion, actually, Will Brown, is going to run a 3rd Colleague racing car, the number 13, coming up at the Chicago Street Race. And that's not all, because you'll also have a supercar driver in Jack Perkins racing for Joe Gibbs Racing in their number 19 Toyota coming up in August at Portland in an Xfinity Series car. So that's great news. More supercars drivers are coming over. It's still rumored that Cam Waters might make a Cup start coming up later on in this year, but that has not been confirmed. No team has been announced, but I would love to see it happen because Waters was in NASCAR Cup race last year. I thought it was really fun. I think he should get another opportunity to run, and we'll just see. We'll just see. Meanwhile, Daniel Suarez is going to drive for Junior Motorsports in the number 9 with Quaker State sponsorship coming up here in a couple of weeks when NASCAR goes to Mexico City. That's going to be in the Xfinity Series. So Suarez is going to do double duty racing the Cup Series and the Xfinity Series in front of his hometown crowd. So that's cool. And additionally, let's talk about that too, because NASCAR has expanded the field size for the Xfinity race from 38 to 40 cars, but with an exception, saying that the final 2 starting spots, so that 39th and 40th starting spot, are going to actually be ineligible for prize money team and owner's points. So you're going to make the field, but you're not going to get anything. You're basically going to call those provisionals, not kind of like the promoter's provisional or whatever that they've got in the Cup Series, but that's the news there in the Xfinity Series. So we're going to go ahead and take another break, and when we come back, we're going to recap the top 3 races of this weekend and get you ready for the races coming up later this weekend. So don't go anywhere. You are watching The Racing Report. And welcome back to The Racing Report. Let's get right on in it. Let's talk Indianapolis 500. It was one heck of a race. Some people were a little bit divided on whether or not it was a good race, but hey, I thought it was enjoyable. I found it entertaining. I don't know. I guess it wasn't 2023. It wasn't 2024. Okay. It wasn't 2022. It wasn't 2021, but it was still a fun and enjoyable race. Overall, it felt right to see Alex Palou finally get that Borg Warner, which, again, I think a lot of people, including himself, felt like his career would not be complete until he had that. Now he has that. So he's got the 500. He's got 3 series championships. What is there left for him to do? Probably win the rest of the IndyCar races, which I would not be surprised if he did. Now, let's talk about some of the things that happened during the race. Obviously, it was a cold start to the race, had a little bit of rain, and on the pace lap, Scott McLaughlin crashed. I felt bad because I was saying it before the race. I was like, man, this is giving me 1992 vibes. Just the weather, the temperature, everything. And then McLaughlin goes and crashes on the starting lap, and I feel bad because I jinxed it. Now, if you don't know, in 1992, pole sitter Roberto Guerrero crashed on the pace laps, and there was just carnage lap after lap after lap. Very little long green flag runs were run during that 92 race, at least during the first half of that race. Not the same 1-to-1, but we did have a pretty interesting start to the race, because after the race finally got going, Marco Andretti crashed. So his Indianapolis, what he said on Instagram, it was his Indianapolis half a mile, basically. And yeah, it was, unfortunately for Marco. Just got squeezed up into the outside wall there by Jack Harvey coming to the start. Not much you can do there, but that's how Marco's 20th Indy 500 start happened. Was he didn't even get past the first turn. Bummer for Marco fans, bummer for him, but that's the Andretti curse for you. That's the Andretti curse for you. But let's also talk about this, because Scott Dixon, who's someone I picked to potentially win that race, suffered brake issues very early on. The car, actually, the rear brakes were on fire at one point during the pace laps, and Dixon, unfortunately, was just never able to regain the time that he lost from having to make those early pit stops, and that didn't go well for him. But then it was all about things happening in the pit area. Like we talked about earlier, Rinus VeeKay crashing coming onto pit road. You had a big fire in Alexander Rossi's pit after he was leading. He was leading the race and having a great run. Came in for a routine stop, and then the car caught fire. And then you had also Robert Schwartzman, the pole sitter. I think his race was done in by a series of pit road mishaps. Obviously, on his first pit stop, the team had a slow stop, dropped him from first to like 15th, somewhere back there, way back in the pack. And then when he was coming in for his pit stop later on in the race, he slid through his pit box, crashed into the outside wall, almost took out some of his pit crew. And that was it. The day was done. The suspension was damaged. The front wing was too damaged, and they just decided to retire the car. So unfortunate there. But then let's talk about Joseph Newgarden, the curse of the three-peat, getting him doing really well. He was up to about 7th after starting basically second to last. Had driven his way all the way up to 7th until he comes in for one of his final pit stops, and then there's a fuel pressure issue, and Newgarden has to retire. Crushing for him, probably also for the best, because I think if he did win again, a lot of people would be questioning the validity of that win. So I think you should take your wins where you can get them, even if it might not seem like a win at the time. Could have been worse. Also, let's talk about Kyle Larson's double attempt ending early in not just the 500, but also the Coke 600. Larson spun a little bit before halfway in the 500, crashed, took out Kiffin Simpson, took out Stingray Robb, and then went to Charlotte immediately after. Well, he was going to have to retire the car in about 30 minutes anyway. The guy had hard out at like 4:30 the rain and then the rain delay, the brief rain delay, however brief, plus Scott McLaughlin crashing on the start, plus the caution for Marco Andretti on the start really kind of kept pushing his timeline back further and further. So it's not like I think he would have been able to actually finish the race, but he didn't anyway because he ended it in the wall, which is disappointing. But then going to Charlotte and spinning out while leading, going back in the pack, and then finally getting caught up in a late race wreck and having the race completely done for him there. Will we see Kyle Larson back at the Indianapolis 500? I think you will, but not doing the double. I think his time doing the double might be over, but I do expect him to be back at the Indianapolis 500 as soon as his NASCAR career is over, or maybe when he decides to step back from full-time NASCAR racing. Now, let's talk about where Palou is in the championship heading into this weekend's race in Detroit. He has a 112-point lead over Pato O'Ward, which is insane. I don't know how anybody's going to catch him. Like, he would legitimately have to just not start the next several races for that gap to even close. And I am not confident that that's going to be able to happen. So that's not going to happen. So definitely, I'm not saying giving the championship to Palou yet, but unless anybody can stop him or unless he stops himself, I think the championship's pretty well done in. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't tune in for Detroit, because I'm sure it's going to be a fine race. Now let's talk about the Coca-Cola 600. As I alluded to earlier, Kyle Larson spun out while leading, but it was Ross the Boss Chastain, old Melon Man, getting his first career crown jewel win. It's not his first NASCAR win, but it was his first win in a NASCAR crown jewel, and it was done in, quite honestly, a very impressive style, beating William Byron, who dominated the race all evening long, and then holding him off when it mattered most, and racing some of the top guys in the sport. Obviously, Denny Hamlin had some really bad luck, was running up front with William Byron the majority of the race until his final pit stop, when a problem with the second fuel can basically dropped him to the 16th place finishing position. Disappointing way for Denny Hamlin to end, but probably even more disappointing for William Byron when you win like the first two stages. I think he might have won the third one too. But lose the race, finish second, come up short. He could have swept the weekend as well, which would have been wild. He won the truck race, he won the Xfinity race, but he came up one spot short of winning the Cup race. But hey, it's okay, because Rick Hendrick locked him into a new contract until 2029. So his seat is safe for a while, and I think it's fair because he's been having one heck of a season so far this year, but just coming up one spot short. But hey, let's talk about Amazon Prime's first ever NASCAR race, because they delivered an average viewership of 2.72 million, which is about what the Cup Series gets on cable, but I think that's a really good number. Within the 18 to 49 demographic, which is the key demographic for a lot of television stations and a lot of ratings, they were about 800,000, which is, again, a very good number to get in that kind of key demographic. So I think overall, NASCAR should be very pleased. I thought Prime's coverage was excellent, and I'm looking forward to watching their coverage coming up here this weekend in Nashville. Now let's quickly go over the Monaco Grand Prix, because, again, you had those mandatory pit stops thrown in there, additional pit stops they had to take. There was some calls of possibly race manipulation there, but I'm kind of scratching my head about that. It didn't really change much, but we did see Lando Norris get his first Monaco victory over Charles Leclerc, and then his teammate Oscar Piastri. Max Verstappen finished fourth. Isaac Hadjar with a very well-deserved P8. There was an early crash earlier on in the race between Gabriele Bortoleto and Kimi Antonelli, but Bortoleto was able to come back and finish 14th. Good for him. Antonelli obviously was fine. He wasn't in the barrier like Bortoleto was. But that first lap accident kind of saw some interesting pit strategy with guys coming in under that virtual safety car, getting off, getting one of their mandatory tire pit stops taken care of. But did it improve the quality of racing? I'm not quite ready to say just yet. I think we just got to make these cars smaller, and that will probably fix up most of the problems that we have with Monaco. So let's go ahead and wrap up this weekend by looking ahead to the races that are this weekend. We've got NASCAR Cup, Xfinity, and Truck Series in Nashville this weekend. It's going to be a super race. I believe that they are reapplying some resin down there on the bottom, so you might have some decent racing here at Nashville. But hey, if you have the opportunity to get down to Nashville, highly recommend it. It's a fun race. Cracker Barrel 400 coming up here on Sunday. That'll be, again, on Prime. So, and again, here's the thing. I understand a lot of people saying, I don't want to get Prime. I don't want to sign up for another streaming service. Prime does have a 30-day free trial. So you could maybe make a burner email, get that free trial, and then cancel it when the NASCAR season on Prime is over. That's a possibility. You could do that. But I understand. It's a principle. Well, for some people, I get it. Either way. Meanwhile, you will be able to watch this race over the air. IndyCar is going to have the Detroit Grand Prix coming up this weekend, also in conjunction with the IMSA race weekend as well. That IMSA race weekend will be, I believe, on Peacock and NBC, while the IndyCar race will be on Fox. So looking forward to that. I believe that's about a 3:30 Eastern start time for IndyCar on Fox. Meanwhile, Formula One's going to be in Barcelona. So again, like I said, all of the series that were in action last week are in action again this week. So Formula One's back, NASCAR's back, IndyCar's back. So we'll see Formula One in Barcelona. But then we've also got a Formula E doubleheader in Shanghai on the abbreviated Shanghai International Circuit that Formula One race is on. Again, it is a little bit shortened, but it still should put on a pretty interesting race because Formula E on these circuit tracks has proven to be pretty interesting and pretty compelling the last couple of times they've done it. Now, coming up next weekend, the supercars will be back in action when they go to Western Australia in Perth for that race. That's coming up here next weekend. Not this weekend, but next weekend we'll have a supercars race. So that is everything you need to know about this weekend. That's the Indianapolis 500, the Monaco Grand Prix, the Coca-Cola 600, and everything coming up. We thank you so much for joining us again and watching this show. We appreciate all the support. Remember, if you like this show, please be sure to follow me on social media by looking up at RPeters33. That's RPEETERS33. And be sure to have that WTHR Plus app installed on your smart TV so you can watch live newscasts and brand new episodes of the Racing Report as soon as they are posted. So, we will see you guys next week. Thank you for watching the Racing Report.